I'm gonna go ahead and call to order the Templeton Community Services District Board of Directors meeting. Today is October 15th, it's 6:15. Call to roll call, please.
Directors English,
Here.
Bardonish,
Here.
Logan,
Here.
Mortensen,
Here.
and Peterson.
Here. Great. We're gonna have a closed session. Is there public comment for closed session? Anybody here? You know, okay, anybody on Zoom? All right, so we're gonna go ahead and adjourn to closed session. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and continue with our Templeton Community Services District Board of Directors meeting. Today is October 15th, it's 7 o'clock now. Roll call, please.
Directors English,
Here.
Bardonish,
Here.
Logan. Here. Mortensen.
Here.
And Peterson.
Here. Pledge of allegiance, please stand for open pledge.
I allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please have a seat. We need to report out of closed session. We have two closed session meetings. One was at the end of the October 1st, 2024 meeting, and then the second one was just before this meeting, October 15th. And there is no reportable action out of those closed session meetings. Order of business. Do any of the board members like to change the order of the business? No. No? Okay, great. Public comment. Members of the public may address the board on any items of interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board, but not on the agenda today. In compliance with the Brown Act, the board cannot discuss or act on items not on the agenda. Do any public member needs to make any comments that's not on the agenda? Ready on Zoom? Great. We move on to the consent agenda. We have two items for the consent agenda. We have the minutes from October 1st, 2024, and we have the treasurer's report for August. Do any board members have any questions regarding those two items? No. Any public member needs to pull those two items or discuss? Okay, since I don't have any questions or comments, I entertain a motion. Move approval. Second.
Second.
You're too late.
Oh.
Roll call, please.
Directors English,
Here.
Peterson,
Yes.
Logan. Here.
Yes.
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 And Bardonish.
Yes. Great. Public hearing. So we have resolution number 19-2024, which is the annual adjustment of impact fees and amendment of master fee schedule. General Manager, Grace?
Yes, thank you very much. Each year, the district has adjusted its development impact fees to keep up with inflation. This is reflected in your adopted fee studies for the various fees that we collect, which are water, sewer, fire, and parks and recreation. All of those fee studies have a recommendation that the fees be annually adjusted by the Engineering News Record Construction Cost Index calculation. It's an index that tracks construction costs. You've done this each year since 2018. And this has been done since then to take effect approximately the first of the following year. This year, the October 2024 edition of the Engineering News Record over the calculation over the October edition of 2023 reflects a modest 1% increase in the construction cost index. That's quite a bit lower than you've seen over the last several years. So I hope that's a sign of things to come. So we have therefore calculated that 1% increase to the various fees that are reflected both in the staff report as well as the resolution. I'm happy to entertain any questions on this calculation. If there are no questions, we would recommend that the district or the board open a public hearing and take any testimony. At the conclusion of the testimony, you can consider adopting the resolution. The resolution updates the master fee schedule, and the primary adjustment is for these 4 fees. They all would take effect on January 1st, or they're proposed to take effect on January 1st, 2025. The reason for that is a couple of the fees require a 60-day notice from the date you take this action until they can take effect. And then the utility fees can actually take effect within 30 days. But for simplicity and to ensure the public has adequate notice, we recommend that all 4 fees take effect at the same time, January 1st, 2025, which is the sort of same pattern that you followed for the past several years. I do want to note that the resolution, that the master fee schedule includes a couple of other fees that are not shown in the current version. Those fees are not proposed to adjust, and that therefore they were not noticed for a public hearing. However, in one case, one of the fees was inadvertently left off the most recent update. It's not in years. It is the fire plan review fee for projects over 5,000 square feet. And again, that was just left off. It's just proposed to go back on. It was properly adopted in the past and just inadvertently left off. And the second fee is for the weed abatement administrative fee for parcels that do not, properties that do not abate their parcels. This fee, again, has been in place for more than a decade. But when we created the master fee schedule, put all these fees together, it was not incorporated into it, and we recommend it be incorporated into the fee schedule, just so again, the members of the public who are looking for various fees can find them all in one place. It is not recommended to be adjusted, but rather just added to the schedule. And so if you adopt resolution 19-2024, those 2 fees I mentioned will be now reflected on the schedule, with the adjustment to the impact fees taking effect on January 1st, 2025.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions for the general manager regarding the adjustments?
Yeah, I just had one quick question. Just as a general rule, the master fee schedule, which includes the impact fees, just applies generally to new development. Not necessarily, we're not charging additional fees to existing residents. Is that
Yeah,
general?
Yes, the impact fees that are recommended for adjustment only apply to new development. They're not something that most residents will ever have to worry about paying. These are not water rates or utility rates or other things that customers pay on a regular basis.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions for the general manager? Okay, so since this is a public hearing, I'm gonna go ahead and open this up to public to see if there's any testimony regarding this item. Any questions or comments on this item regarding the master fee and the changes to the fees? No, okay. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and so if there are no further questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to go ahead and. Yeah, but they didn't make a comment. Yeah, I looked, they didn't raise a hand. So I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that the board approve resolution number 19-2024, amending the master fee schedule by revising the development impact fee by a change in the construction code index of 1% for water, wastewater, fire, and park and rec, effective January 1, 2025.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Logan,
Aye.
Mortensen,
Aye.
English,
Aye.
Peterson,
Yes.
and Fardonish.
Aye. Great, motion passes 5-0. Okay. The next item is a request from Templeton Community Library Association. General Manager?
Sure, I'm happy to introduce this item. Yes, good evening. As the board's aware, the Templeton Community Library Association has made a request of Templeton Community Services District to consider beginning the process of eventually activating a library authority. It's a power that community services districts may elect to activate and eventually operate the Templeton Library. Melinda Reed, and actually there's a number of representatives here from Templeton Community Library Association, have provided you some additional materials that we included in the board packet that kind of outline the in-depth their request and go through some of the policies. And actually there's a pretty good history of the Templeton Community Library Association or library service in general in Templeton over the past 100 years, with more specific information about Templeton Community Library Association, which has been in existence now for nearly 25 years. The district has had a cooperative relationship with TCLA. You know, early on in TCLA's formation, the TCLA approached Templeton Community Service District about development related items as it contemplated building a library, and TCSD did waive connection fees and provided utility connections for the library, which was eventually, 20 years later constructed, or more recently constructed and opened up in early 2023. And additionally, we had a cooperative relationship for many years ago. Templeton Community Library Association operated a book room on Main Street, and the landowner of that book room, that I don't remember the specifics, but the lease wasn't going to be renewed for the book room, and so Templeton Community Library Association approached TCSD about operating the book room out of the Templeton Recreation Center, or Lens Place Youth Center, all synonymous. And TCSD board did approve a reduced rate, and the Templeton Community Library Association operated the book room out of our facility from late 2015 until late 2022, so about 7 years before the library itself opened up. So we have a cooperative relationship. Over the years, I've had some dealings with the library, mostly during the period of time when the book room was operated out of our own facility. So I'm just anecdotally aware of some of the challenges they've been dealing with. Just by way of background, and I'm sure the Library Association will dive into this a little further, most of the libraries in this county are operated by the County of San Luis Obispo. There are a couple exceptions. The city of San Luis Obispo and the city of Paso Robles operate a little differently. The libraries there, not 100% through the county, but all of the other branches are operated by the County of San Luis Obispo. Many of these more rural branches closed in the late 70s, and then several of them opened back up over time. Templeton's, the county, they never did reopen a library here, and I think that's what led to the more direct work by TCLA to get a library back in operation in Templeton. And the county does not have any current support, or financial or otherwise operating support, for the Templeton library. So it's operating as a sort of a standalone operation with volunteer forces.
We have somebody on that, if we can. So unless there's any questions of me, I would recommend that you'd invite Melinda Reed to kind of outline the TCLA's request of you. I know that this is there's probably a lot of information here. They did a great job of providing background information. I would recommend that you entertain their request, ask clarifying questions, and then I'm happy to go through some options that you might have available. I didn't vet their proposal, but rather put forward just some questions that I thought you ought to ponder as you consider this request. This is, I think this is, sort of day one of this request, and if it were to move forward, there'd be several steps before that would be required of TCSD before any sort of final determination or action could be taken by Templeton Community Services District. While you have the right to request to activate the power, you do not have unilateral authority to make that happen, and there's a process that it would need to go through should you wish to pursue it. All right,
Thank you, Chairman. At this point, do any board members have any questions for the general manager before I open it up to the public?
Go ahead.
No, okay, all right, let's go ahead, open up to public, and Melinda, did you wanna?
Have
speak?
something to say.
So, please, if you go ahead to the podium, introduce yourself.
Thank you.
By the way, excellent report, appreciate it, very detailed. But, go ahead, please.
Wonderful. Well, I am Melinda Reed. I'm president of TCLA and also Templeton Library. And I know that you have the packet of information that we submitted, a budget, our policies and procedures, all of the related materials, history, all of that. But we are here today. I wanted to focus on three specific things, kind of as a guideline from Jeff as to what are our qualifications, what services do we provide, and do we have a financial plan in going forward with this idea and thought. So first of all, I wanted to talk about our qualifications for providing library services here. And we comply and are using the same standards that are used by SLO County Library. The county library hires librarians on 3 different levels, 1, 2, and 3, but all of them are required to have a 4-year college degree, a BA or BS, but very few of them are required to have a master's of library science. They quit requiring that partly due to cost and staffing, and I don't know what their decision was, and I do not know how many of the branches have library number 3, level 3, as their managers or librarians. But public libraries today are more about books and curated resources of materials, and the focus tends to be a little bit more on community activities, and that requires some managerial skills as much as knowledge of books, and that's why we are who we are. Templeton Library has a paid site coordinator who is a retired teacher, and she's on site daily. One of our TCLA directors is Jen Kuhn, who is the current librarian at Templeton Elementary School. And we have volunteers that assist in all of the operations, but we use the term volunteer to clarify the roles because we are not considering and not calling ourselves librarians. Collaboratively, we use everyone's experience to run the library. These are some of our volunteers. One of them is a former SLO County librarian with over 40 years of experience. 3 of our volunteers are former school librarians, several retired teachers, retired RNs, all with degrees, extensive business experience. We do have a civil engineer who is in charge of our cataloging, and her details are meticulous. It's worth noting that volunteers are not readily used by a lot of the SLO County libraries. Paso City Library uses a lot of volunteers, and they also use them and train them very well to use the reference library and our reference librarians, and they require a commitment of over a year to start that training. A few years ago, we had, well, also for our libraries, we have our all background screened, and we train them individually or in group meetings. We have a training log of their skills, and we have a volunteer handbook for them. But a few years ago, we had the good fortune of working with an attorney who gifted us her time, and thanks to her, we have professional policy and procedures. We have documented standard operating procedures, and those are updated annually, and everything we do is written in those manuals and also in our bylaws. So a small side note to that is that just in September, California, Governor Newsom signed the Freedom to Read Act, which basically is banning books. It's illegal to ban books, or making it very difficult to ban books. That law will become effective January 1st of 2026. But when I reviewed our public policies and procedures, I noticed under Section 7 and material selection that we are compliant with that act already. And there's only a small item in item number 3 where a paragraph needs to be amended to activate a review committee that was written into that, but they need to address that. I am pleased and proud of that, and that person is here in this room today, and it's Connie Madera, and I thank her for her expertise in giving us that skill and level of professionalism. TCSD would not have to decide how to run a library. We believe that what we have established and the way that we run this library complies with state laws, the LAFCO rules, Government Code 56653, I have it memorized, And we have developed the procedures and documented it all. So TCLA would still like to be a part of the library, and we are proposing or hoping that the library going forward, if it was allowed and under CSD, there is a library advisory group of community members. Usually it's 5 members elected to 4-year terms. And I know that some TCLA members, myself included, probably would be interested in those positions. But that's going forward in our services or qualifications. We also have a catalog system. It's by the company Biblionics, one of the most efficient, cost-effective cataloging systems available for public libraries. It was recommended to us by Paso City librarian Eric Lashley. Eric comes from Texas, and he was librarian of the year before he retired in Texas. And he came to Templeton Library and was so impressed with not only our library facility, but our operations. He's the one that recommended the Biblionics as cost effective to us because we cannot afford to have the county's COHA system, which is out of our range. But at any rate, he made the remark that I love. Texans would kill to have a library like this in their city, town, and county, which we were proud of. For services, what are our services? We have a paid staff, 1 staff member and volunteers that enroll patrons for free library books, check in books, check out books. We have no fines. We assist patrons in locating their desired materials and reserve meeting space. Our collection is available on the website Biblionics, Templeton.Biblionics. With their patron card, they can get on and manage their whole account, their holds, their renewals, everything. We have over 13,500 materials labeled, cataloged, and shelved on our system. That's an anomaly. They are by author and Dewey Decimal System. All of the levels of reading in the children's section, there are 9 to 10 levels, everything from picture books or board books to picture books, all the levels of reading. Many of those are coordinated with Templeton schools, such as the Battle of the Books. We have young adult fiction. We have young adult Spanish, nonfiction, everything in the adult and nonfiction, large print, we have science fiction, dystopian fiction, Western literature, classics, adult movies, and audiobooks. All that is available at Templeton Library. The programs that we have are weekly preschool story time, weekly senior story time, a monthly adult book club that's volunteer led. We have an amazing summer reading program that is created in-house. We do not purchase it. It runs for 8 weeks between June and August. And the prizes that we are able to give to the children for their hours that they have spent reading are quite remarkable. Lego kits and a lot of things that have been donated to us. Plus we give away a bicycle they put their tickets that they've earned into a jar for a bicycle or several other large prizes. In addition to that, we have art classes bi-monthly, and we have a bi-monthly Pokemon club and a SAT workshop that starts in the spring. And those were student inspired and student run. Impressive. The library, SLO County Library that was not allowed. Resources for tutors are on our website, and we have tutors that bring their clients to the library to meet. We have author appearances, reading signings. We collaborate with Cuesta College Library Studies Program. We have used books for purchase that brings in a number of people. We also have this month costumes available. NOR, low income free medical clinic comes to Templeton Library once a month. They do also at some of the other libraries as well. We are beginning a monthly speaker series starting in November, computer literacy, and with tech issues, financial planning will be on the agenda for next January, teens and online banking, and those will likely be evening programs for the library. We have amenities, study areas, work tables, laptop bars with charging tables, print and copy fees, copy services, Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi, rentable meeting space, tutoring that I mentioned, business Zoom calls go on, and Jen Kuhn hopefully will be able to speak to you in regards to the close connection that we have with Templeton Unified School District, the schools, the students, and our proximity to the schools is premier. 3 of the 4 Templeton schools are in walking distance. Homeschool students walk over as well. For our financials and our financial plan will be completed and finalized once we get some more details and information, hopefully from you. But you have our proposed budget. It's $153,000 to run and operate Templeton Library with the history of the costs that we have and expenses that we have in 2 years of running it. It includes 2 employees, and the current site coordinator and a library manager director. And that is my Vice President Nancy Witt and myself. We are the role of the current library managers, directors. What we will need to add to our financial plan will be the costs that are admin, allocation, asset replacement, costs to, convert to your operation to complete it. Templeton received a gift from a longtime donor, a gift of nearly $1 million in 2018, which enabled us to go to the county and say, we have our 50% of the 50-50 deal. And we were told that the county didn't have their money, but that sum we used to build our project. And we now currently have fixed assets to total $1.5 million. We reserved $700,000. We still have to operate for another 5 to 7 years, should we not get any sustainable funding from the county or else. We feel we're financially sound, and Malcolm Pickett will speak to our investment program and our policies on that. We would like that Templeton TCLA would retain ownership and maintain the library building and the grounds, the building and exterior, and that TCSD would operate the interior and handle the operations. TCLA would probably return to being a friends group and supply enhanced programs to the community, and also be able to participate in that library advisory group that I mentioned previously. The modulars that we bought from Enviroflex that we used for our library are expected to last at a minimum of 60+ years. They are substantial on a concrete foundation with heavy duty floor. And if I haven't mentioned it to you, I always tout this, is that it was built to higher standard codes. The DSA is the Division of State Architects. And if you buy a modular from Enviroflex, it's you choose a menu of items that are pre-approved by DSA. Pick those off of there and you're usually pre-approved. Another note is that we have a higher standard for that building, but our building was not constructed with prevailing wage. Prior to construction, the Templeton Unified School District's counsel, Martin Hom, who is a specialist in public works and construction law, asserted in our email to verify that we did not need to do prevailing wage because we were 100% donated and it qualified to be built without prevailing wage. There was also comments, and there have been comments about whether or not the county would be prevented by taking over that building. He assured us that that is not the case and that the county has had leases with buildings that were not necessarily built with prevailing wage. It brings us a question of why or whether the county would part with their county tax dollars that they are receiving and give it to Templeton Library. It's estimated that Templeton property owners in the TCSD, and possibly I think the figure also includes some of TUSD property, that would totals about $400,000 annually for library services that go directly to SLO County. If Templeton Community Services District agrees to take on the operation, if you are willing, we will petition LAFCO for those dollars to have them directed to TCSD to operate and administrate, and your expenses considered, to see if that will be sufficient. We're wondering how long ago the promise of spending 50-50 with communities to build library facilities, that was a rule that was on the books. How long is that going to go on, since the counties currently cannot do that? And then we hear from Los Osos and several other county libraries that are saying, are we still doing the 50-50 rule? And Chris Barnacle has said it's still on the books. I could go on about that, I won't. County officials told us to go ahead and build Templeton Library. We had our money and we were ready to go 50-50 with them. We couldn't use that plan because it was beyond our expectations. So we reverted to the modular plan, which was in our budget. And they told us to go ahead and build this library. We were told when the county wanted to put a bond measure on the 2020 November ballot that we were considered next in line for facilities if the bond measure passed. The county vigorously solicited our support in 2019 and the beginning of 2020. And we were told that they had no money for facilities, so they would need this bond measure to pass. And they wanted our support to be able to go forward on the recognition or realization that we were first in line for any money. COVID derailed all of that. Going even further back, as Jeff mentioned, the county closed Templeton Library after Prop 13 and never reopened it after 1979. Templeton had a library on Main Street. It's on the location of the current Women's Club. And it was started there, even though that's not the original building. And Templeton Library appears in the SLO County Centennial Celebration of Libraries, 100 years. We are in that book. So it's been 45 years that the county has been collecting library services tax money from Templeton residents that go to our closest library branch is Atascadero. And we don't know how or why or when it was ever decided that Atascadero was sufficient to serve Templeton, because we have Preston, Canyon, and the other very rural, out of the way libraries that are on more of a distance. But Templeton wanted a library. They always said wanted a library, and that is, of course, how we TCLA was formed. But how about these comparables? Is like today, how can the county look at Templeton Library and not recognize the fact that they celebrated Shell Beach Library for 75 years in July, 75 years of service. They had a proclamation and had the Shell Beach Library staff come, and I am not demeaning them at all. I am looking at comparables. Shell Beach has a population of approximately 8,000 people, so does Templeton. Shell Beach very proudly mentioned they had 709 library card holders. Templeton has 1,532 library card holders. And we've only been open 2 years. They were very proud that they had checked out in the year of 2023, they had checked out 5,100 books. As of today, we have checked out over 7,000 books out of Templeton Library. Their hours had been less than 18 hours, which Chris Barnacle has told us is the minimum for an express branch, which we would be considered. We run our libraries at 22 hours, and we would like to be open perhaps an evening or possibly on Monday, we don't know. A little over a week ago, Templeton Library was invited to the nonprofit SLO Library Foundation has events once or twice a year, and they have donors and they support libraries with programs of various things. And this was out at Chandler Ranch in Preston. The Library Foundation and their members have long supported Templeton. But this event was for all SLO County Library employees that were there to meet and greet people that they don't normally see. Chris Barnacle announced that his budget is now $14 million, and they have 14 branches. His budget is comprised 90 to 95% of property taxes. There's only a small portion of his budget that comes from the county's general fund. Each branch librarian or manager was called forward to give a short summary of how their library influences their community. And I don't recall Atascadero being there, but they could have been, and I missed it. But for all the rest of the libraries that were there, Templeton was not introduced. But our stats and our activities meet or exceed every activity that was mentioned at each of those libraries. The point is that the county does not consider us an equal. And although SLO Foundation does, we provide identical services to our community as those other branches do. Earlier this year, Chris Barnacle, when he was visiting Templeton Library, simply said, "We have no money to operate Templeton Library. I wish that we did. But my hands are tied, and until the Board of Supervisors tell me that I have to run Templeton Library, he can do nothing." Templeton Library, of course, is newer, bigger, brighter. and it has a larger, more current collection than similar branches. We can put a current bestseller on our shelves in a week or two because we catalog and label all of our books in-house. It takes the county 2 to 3 months to do the same thing for 14 branches. Now, I do understand they're duplicating all of this for a lot of other branches because they have to buy their books pre-cataloged and labeled when we do it in-house. We can pivot on our policies when the need arises. We discuss it, we change it, and within weeks, we have reverted or changed whatever we were doing on library cards this way, we're doing it now on this way. We can pivot, we can do that. In February of this year, we did sign an MOU with SLO County Libraries, or SLO County, to enroll Templeton patrons in the county library system. They require driver's license and it has to be documented, but we were trained on how to do that. In turn, the county gave us a surplus book return box, which we needed, we wanted, we like it, to protect their collection materials that are often dropped off at Templeton Library. People think that, we will accept those, that's fine. But the county, within weeks, just before we had even publicized it, they discontinued the program. We were somewhat puzzled by that, but we were told later that the county's Sprint van, they have 3 of them, one of them is at a Templeton. The Sprint van was to deliver books to Templeton that patrons had reserved. But we learned that Atascadero declined to use their van or have their personnel pull our books. They didn't have the time or the money, or I don't know what the problem was. So the question that you have brought up is whether energy is perhaps spent better convincing SLO County libraries to take us on and operate Templeton Library. Our answer is a definitive no. The county would only run Templeton for 18 hours a week as an express branch, as I've mentioned. The county told us they cannot use our collection of books. It's not labeled the same. We are a different catalog system. They would have to repurchase an entire collection completely labeled in order to stock Templeton Library. They possibly would not be using our shelving or furniture. Our shelving that we were donated is currently in some of their county surplus. It's probably in some of their branches too, but at any rate, we like our furniture, we like our shelves, and it's very adequate, and they are professional industry standard. The SLO County Library cannot do some of our procedures because sometimes they're told that they have to wait for county council or someone to weigh in. They do not allow the student-run programs that I mentioned to you, the popular, SAT workshop and Pokemon Club. The county cannot get a bestseller on their shelves in enough time that they end up with 30 to 60 or more patrons waiting for books. And county library staff came to our library and said, oh, I was looking for that book. I'm number 25 on the list. Can I take this out? Yes, you can check it out from Templeton Library. We have copies. The dedications that we have done are the plaque to Margaret Anderson Radnich, the chair for George R. Hurst Jr., the portico plaque in memory of Carl Caesar, a former school superintendent, Carla Wilhoit, a local historian and icon pioneer here, Josh Gibson, our original Boy Scout. All those donor acknowledgements are not allowed by county policy. They're what people enjoy looking at Templeton Library. The Atascadero Friends Group was told they could not provide a special program that they had decided they had a resource and someone to come into their library to do a special program. I do not remember what it was, but they were told no, they couldn't do that unless all 14 of the county branches had the same program or opportunity. So the county now emphasizes that its branches are participating in the hub of the outlying communities, granted. And they seem to recognize the role of libraries is expanding, and much more so than just books, all of the activities. We have racks of them, maps, bus routes, and town activities, and we provide free bus passes and free COVID tests. We have outdoor gathering areas, gardening classes. But we cannot apply for any state programs such as the free park passes and Zip Books, which is a program that the county used for a short time, and we considered it for a while, but we can't apply to those because we are not taxpayer funded. If we were in TCSD, we could apply to the state for some of those programs. Interestingly, after I inquired with the state, Chris Barticle received a phone call from the state librarian. His first name is Reed, that's how I remember him. I think the last name is Strege, I believe. But asked Chris Barnacle is, why come you're not supplying it? Why are you not doing this for Templeton Library? And I think Chris was a little taken back, but he says, oh, we'll work on it. We'll be working on that. But those are the reasons. That's why we have come to our conclusion. Our preference is that we would prefer TCSD. We wonder, and people ask us, why is a nonprofit organization able to design and furnish an enviable library that the county says they cannot operate and have no funds? We can prove that we are providing the exact same services and the county cannot. But where is the compensation? They are collecting the money for those. We want the ability to operate with customized local services. And I don't know what TCSD's resources are that you mentioned, of whether they're able to assist Templeton Library or whether it would strain the other services that you do provide. And I have told my board ahead of time that I uncovered the information that you are one of only 13 independent CSDs in the state of California. There are 3,000 to my knowledge, and that your ability to run the fire and the streets and the waters and the street lights and the paving and the wastewater and all of those things that you do are a lot for, look at 5 board members here and a manager, that we understand that we're asking a lot. We hope that we could receive enough money to provide additional staff personnel or something to help with that. But my final quote, and then I will sit down and let other people speak. This comes from the state library, and there is no government agency at any level, local, state, or federal, that responds to community needs and expectations more swiftly than a locally run library. So you have some choices to make in what you choose to do. I know Dr. But we hope you will choose action number 1 that we saw stated, that said you would direct the staff to work with TCLA to secure SLO County dedicated taxes, and that we could proceed to petition LAFCO and develop plans to operate. Thank you. Now, do I take questions now or later, or? you
We
wanna-
could start, yeah, I think, see if the board members have questions, and we could.
Okay.
Board members, do you guys have any questions?
I think we have a lot of questions.
Yeah, I have a ton of questions. I would first like to really applaud you and all of the TCLA board members. One, for the information that you've provided, but reading through it, it's like, what perseverance and commitment. And I can see that it was a long, hard. I also got the impression that the county was, in many ways, wanted to provide a budget, but I think due to their own budgetary constraints, were not able to do so, but yet they encouraged you to continue to move forward. But I counted at least 9 times in the chronology where they said, no budget dollars, no budget dollars. And I think with the bond, I think that was a nice attempt on their part, but then it never came to fruition. And I think that that would have been an excellent way of at least having the citizens vote on that. But one of the questions that I have for you is, has TCLA, it's hard for me to say
I know,
LA. I was thinking Southern California. Did you consider pursuing becoming a special district yourself? There are special districts that are just libraries in California. I did a little bit of research, and they're actually special districts within a city. So I guess my question is, did you pursue that through, or give that in consideration or explore that, where you would at least engage LAFCO, and hopefully those dollars that are being collected from property taxes could be then given to the library?
There are special districts that we have investigated. Palos Verde is one of them. And there's another in Northern California, a couple of them that we used as models or investigated. how they were doing that. Many of the other special district libraries are associated. Some of them are standalone. Palos Verde stands alone.
Yeah.
And there are others, but yes, it is something that we had looked into, but we're quite fond of TCSD, but.
When I looked into it, Glennon Park is one, Placentia is another, and Lassen, which is in Northern California. Those were the three that I found that are actually special districts. And then you mentioned about kind of the organizational structure a little bit. If TCSD were to take in the library, that it would basically be that, and correct me if I'm kind of misquoting here, that the structure would be that the library would be independent would you continue with the same board and operate the same? And just use TCSD as kind of an umbrella, if you will, for the purpose of being able to secure some of the grants that are only available to libraries within a government agencies?
Well, as I read through the government code and what it is described is that, and I know that Paso City Library and Helico Fortin is the director of the CSD, which is a different CSD than what you are. And they have a 5-member library advisory board. And I don't know the exact structure and who has authority or managerial, the managerial trait. Their money from CSD, or all their money goes into a general fund, so it's different. It's not separated out. All their money goes into that, and Paso City provides certain services and other money and funds and funnels it to the library. But that information, and I had reached out to Angelica Fortin again, because I had a question of her, and she's out of town as it is right now, but.
Well, I would kind of envision it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, that it seems like today, the property tax dollars that we receive, which funds fire, drainage, streetlights, and park and rec, it's coming in, and we, as the board, are allocating how those funds, what percent goes to each department.
Yes, and you have total control of how you spend your property tax.
So if assuming that the library were to come under TCSD, those funds would just come in and we would then have to come up with what that distribution is.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. So that's the case with general property taxes. When you, there's actually when you write a check, property tax are due in December. So when you're gonna write a check to the county or however you pay, those are divvied up to all the various taxing entities. We of course receive some. The county receives general property taxes, and then a portion of what we pay also goes to the library fund of the county directly. And so I believe when you're hearing how much funds are paid towards the libraries, it's the subset of the property taxes. It is going directly to the county library fund. So we don't know. LAFCO does not have the ability to force those funds to come back to Templeton CSD. That has to be an agreement between the agency that's trying to activate the power and the agencies that's giving it up. So in this case, the county would have to, TCSD, if we were to pursue this, we'd have to reach agreement with the county. And then LAFCO would essentially bless that tax sharing agreement. And then depending on the details, either would go into a library fund directly as a sort of a subset of TCSD, as it does presently with the county, or it might become part of our property tax, overall property tax allocation, in which case you'd have authority over it. I think what's important to note though is there's no, to my knowledge, no way to force the county to give up. It would have to be done to give up those tax dollars. It would have to be given up on the county's behalf voluntarily.
So that's my question here. So what you outlined tonight, thank you, by the way. I wanted to just appreciate all of the members of TCLA. I did have ex parte conversation. I met with Melinda at the library, and thank you very much for that. You all are amazing, and what you've been doing and have done in our library is splendid, and we appreciate you. So what you outlined tonight was basically that it's a hypothetical amount of funds that would have come back to TCSD only. So assuming that that allocation would come back as a 2.7% allocation to our geographic area. You had mentioned something about outside of the boundaries of USD. But I don't know that that's possible. Can we
Right.
have an overlay of us taking additional funds outside into the area outside the school district?
So I'd say in general, no. I mean, you know, our service area, our boundaries are our boundaries unless they were to change radically, although there have been there are, you know, unusual things that might occur. This is kind of hypothetical, but I think if this were to move forward, my understanding is LAFCO would anticipate us activating library authorities within our existing boundaries. And so that would become the area that we would be serving. And so and as a result, the county would be losing that power within our service area.
But they would also be retaining some of those property tax revenue. So it would just be that portion within TCSD if the county were to relinquish that.
That's right.
Well, so relinquishing the authority probably isn't difficult, that the county's not spending any of this money in our surface area. It's relinquishing the tax base, you know, that they collect within our area and is spent elsewhere.
I had a long conversation the end of last week with her name is Erin Stoddard, and she took over the position, her boss's position that we had dealt with her boss before, but she and I went together on get out my property tax bill and look at it and look what your property taxes are, and your assessed valuation was 1% of that, and those are the tax dollars that we're talking about is taken out. But in addition to that, there was a Templeton fire, and that is not based on value. That was an additional, is a different set fee or some kind of set that was separate. And so that money goes to you separately for your fire. And I don't know how it comes into you, but at any rate, what she's saying is that, yes, we probably would have to stick with TCSD boundaries when we go forward with that. If we chose to try to include Templeton Unified School District boundaries, even though we all agree that those would be the boundaries that would probably be serving the library, we would probably have to go to the State Board of Equalization in order to annex or get that tax base, which at this point, we're like, no, that's, you know, not.
I think
But I know that what she said of the 1% that goes of my tax that I'm looking at, tax dollars that go to the county, of that 1.635 is the amount of money that goes to library services from my tax bill. So it is 1% and then 1.635 of that goes.
So I guess my question is if the library has been unsuccessful in getting that 1.63% back to the library.
We
Why
haven't
do you-
tried.
Pardon me?
We haven't tried to go to LAFCO. We have to park those funds somewhere. If we are going to ask LAFCO for money, they won't give it to a nonprofit. We have to park it with a government agency.
Okay, I get
So
it.
that's why.
So again, I guess it goes back, you've not considered doing a special district for the library.
Correct. Well, we've looked into it, but you are a local special district that has the ability to activate latent powers to operate a library, rather than us going out and creating a special district.
Any other questions, Director Logan?
Go ahead.
English, you have a question?
Yeah, well, I did, so there's a lot to unpack in this, and so what we can deal with tonight, I think the forensics for us is a big issue. And I would love to have I'm actually veering into comments, not necessarily questions, and so maybe we'll bring
Yeah,
that
maybe,
back.
okay, yeah, okay. Director Pearson, do you have any questions? Gonna wait? I'm gonna wait. Okay, Director Mortensen, any question? No. I'm just, I guess, a couple of questions. One was, when we, through a couple of emails that we have communicated, you previously had mentioned, you were thinking of having 3 part-time employees?
We've downsized that to 2 and
Okay.
set up the roles of responsibility.
Oh, okay,
We're thinking in our dreams, if we could access all of the funds that were allocated for library services, that would bring enough money into TCSD, because you have admin costs and you have other things in managing a library. We want to retain, you wouldn't have to put a roof on the library, all of that kind of thing. We would take care of all that. But just the interior library operations and going on and paying payroll and doing those kinds of things, we considered, and Jeff very kindly gave us all of the workman's comp, and we pay that already on some of it, but your benefits and estimate of benefits and all that, and that's all scaled into the wages that we gave you.
and then so, just added, you mentioned, so you, TCLA wants to maintain the ownership of the building.
If we could, yes.
Okay, and then the operations though is going to be, so who's gonna be, are they gonna be reporting whoever that's working, are they gonna be reporting to the board of the TCLA, or it's
No.
going to be reporting
Um,
to our general manager?
They would become TCSD employees. And you would have the expenditures and the payments for operation. TCLA would fund programs and put money into the library. That is my question, is to exactly how, we do not want to have you have to be making minute decisions over what book is purchased
Yeah.
or all the different things. That, I believe, is what they have the library advisory board for, which TCLA members or board or other part of the public is also, it's a community library advisory board.
And then as far as the number you mentioned, you're thinking, estimating $400,000, but that could be, part
That's
of the
probably-
school district. Yeah. So because I see a number here that Chris had mentioned, in one of your meetings, December 9th, 2019, that, he thinks the TCSD portion is $232,000, and this is back in, for 2018. So I'm assuming that number, 230, maybe it's gone up to 270.
I don't recall seeing that figure that you're putting.
So-
2000, that's September 19th of.
December 9th, 2019, Connie had asked, and that it was the same meeting that Chris had mentioned that those tax dollars they're not specifically meant to be for Templeton. If they go to the fund and they get spent, so they don't consider that, Templeton. So I don't know how interested they'd be in losing that money, but it seems like, that operation, I mean, the number would be 232, but, that's getting into the details. All right, I think those were my questions.
Did the county actually make any kind of formal writing to you about the fact that you are not going to fund the library?
Those were, Shirley Sigmund was president during some of those negotiations that happened with the bond issue and all of that kind of thing, and we were told no. Shirley was going to speak. She asked for an MOU to have them commit to running and operating a library, and it was a length of time that led right into COVID, and we never saw that, and we were told there was no funding. We don't have anything.
Nothing in writing.
Right, correct.
All right, I think those are all the questions. Next speaker. Next person that wants to make a comment on the behalf of TCLA.
Right.
Yeah, please stand up to the podium, introduce yourself.
Give them each.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you.
I always have.
Yeah.
Oh, no, okay.
Thank you for putting the print where I can read it.
I actually had it bigger, smaller, because I wanted to be able to read it and not squint.
Linda likes to put it down where I can get my bag.
A lot to say. Linda.
So are we doing 3 minutes?
We can run a timer.
Yeah, okay, so we're doing 3 minutes.
Okay, tell me when to go.
All right, go ahead.
My name is Shirley Sigmund. I'm a current board member and it's all written down, so I'm just reading from what I've written. Past president of the Templeton Community Library Association. Thank you for listening to Melinda's presentation tonight. This is from an audio recording because I recorded all our meetings when I was president of TCLA. So this was a recording on May 9th, 2019. It was up here at the sheriff's office. Meeting participants was County Supervisor John Bashong, myself, TCLA board members Wayne Peterson and Gwen Pelfrey. Per Supervisor Bashong, the two previous supervisors of our district, Harry Ovid and Frank Meacham, promised to but never built the Templeton Library. Supervisor Bashong said he was committed to fulfilling that promise to Templeton and that the library was his only expenditure project and he would somehow find the money for our library. He also stated at that time, Chris Barnacle, the SLO County Director of Libraries, was looking to place a bond measure for library facilities on the November 2020 ballot. And that county would want us to support that effort. If the bond were to pass, the county could then borrow money against that bond for construction, and he would be able to then have the capital expenses. Then about a month later, a recording of a meeting on June 11th, 2019 was down at the county staff office. And present were TCLA board members, myself, Wayne Peterson, Don Potts, and Joanne Jones. County Supervisor John Bashong and county staff, Wade Horton, who at that time was County Administrative Officer, Chris Barnacle, and I can tell in the recording, and unidentified female staff. The county stated unequivocally they had no money at all for constructing our project, even if we had brought the 50% of the cost. Supervisor Bashong shared that Ovid and Meacham had not put aside money into an account solely for building a library. So there were no funds from the county for it. Supervisor Bashong also stated that attempting to fund library construction would cut into the sheriff's department's budget because at that time he was able to put a couple more sheriffs in our area and that public safety was the priority. Also, he knew that he wasn't going to get 2 more votes for library construction because that meant diverting funds from other people's districts. So it wasn't going to happen. So again, the county was talking about passing a bond measure, but it was really a parcel tax. It would be an annual parcel tax, $19. I think it was Chris Barnacle said, the price of a cheap bottle of wine for library facilities in the upcoming 2020 election. The county said, keep reaching out to your donors to build that library because they didn't have money. But they did say in the past, if we built it, they would operate it. And I pressed Mr. Horton about that. And he said, it's a staffing model. It has to be discussed with Chris. Chris said it was doable, but the library had to be built by prevailing wage law and to.
That's the time.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
For
thank
a
you.
minute, that's fine.
And it's all there in writing for
Yes.
you. So any operational discussions for the library would need to consider his budget and his 14 libraries that he was responsible for. Supervisor Bashong stated at that time, there's no MOU with the county regarding a Templeton library, one should be drafted, but again, Melinda, it didn't happen. Towards the end of that meeting, TCLA board member Wayne Peterson stated, Templeton Community Service District has a latent power to run the library. If that would happen, I know we have to go to LAFCO and all that. I know about the process, but if that would happen, the $425,000 that went to property taxes, that went to the county for library service, would that revert to the Community Service District? A county male staffer said, yeah, I think it would. So county staff also said that they would not pursue it, but that Jeff Rhodes, they welcomed you to call them and to talk about that. Fast forward November 2020, that parcel tax measure never made it to the ballot because as we all know, COVID happened and other needs took place in terms of county money. Since then, there have not been any library facilities on the measures on county. And I don't think it's ever been, as far as I know, in terms of something from the county to support Templeton's library.
Thank you. I have a quick question. Since I guess you were involved in getting this all started. I mean, when you guys were thinking of building the library, did you have a 5, 10-year, 20-year plan for operations? Or was this like, we're gonna build it and then?
It was, if we build it, the county would run it. That
Okay,
was always
so- but there was never really, and so.
there was no
you're saying
MOU.
there's-
There was just like,
Yeah.
basically discussions with counties, basically our supervisor.
You know, I hate that this is happening to you, but I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's hard. But yeah,
Yeah, we've been promised from two supervisors before Kashong. They were gonna do, in fact, I think in the recording, it says, Brett Meacham ran on that platform. And he
but
was gonna
as far
get
as,
us a library.
but as far as operating the library, you just, you didn't know that you're gonna be sustainable for 10, 15 years.
Because the county said they would run it.
That we ran it, so.
We just had to
Like, we were in the middle of COVID too,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they had started construction and then everything was.
Yeah, nothing was promised for sure.
Any other questions for Shirley? No? Okay, well, thank you, Shirley.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other comments from public? Anybody could speak? 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Malcolm Pickett, and you know, the best question, why TCSD? Got a framework, you know, I think speaking for the board, our goal is to secure funding and give the TCSD a sort of a plug and play. You know, we can graft a library onto your operations without much pain. And we have an oversight board to function as an auxiliary. You know, San Luis Obispo County professes that libraries are community hubs. We don't have a community hub. We develop a community hub. It's great, you know, and it's growing and so I think, you know, I know my goal is to secure some tacit approval from the TCSD in our actions to get public funding. Not looking for you guys to carry our water, but we do want to, you know, have some support, just in guidance, going through the administrative protocols, and that's all I have. Thanks.
You're the treasurer, right? You're the treasurer of TCSD?
Oh, no, I'm secretary.
Oh, you're secretary, okay, all right. Is the
Former
treasurer?
He's a former.
Well, former president, former vice
Okay.
president, Lynn did mention that, you know, and one other thing, in the MOU that was tendered by San Luis Obispo County, one of the arrangements was that we would give up all the funds we have accrued and give it to the county. You know,
All 14 branches have to, all the friends groups to the branches have to sign an MOU that says if they go out of business, their money has to go to the county.
So I guess maybe for
Anyway,
one of you,
I'm sorry.
it's as far as, I'm just looking at the different roles that you have here, or, you know, TCLA secretary, and then so you have treasurer, so I guess you guys are expecting to keep the treasurer and secretary, and so they'll be paying the financial, I mean, they'll keep financial records, past records, do annual budget, tax preparation. So are you expecting that?
As a nonprofit, as a friends group,
But if
we would have
TCS
to,
so but
we
if,
would have to be a friends group, still a nonprofit.
But, okay, I see.
As a friends group, a
Okay.
friends group is an income.
so
tax.
this is not for the
Right.
money that's coming through,
Correct.
okay, all right,
Sorry, good clarification.
yeah, okay, thank you.
So was there any discussion,
Yes.
any discussion about what if TCSD assumes the role of library services? And you all are wonderful and are engaged in 5 years from now, you're not interested, people move on. So the kind of succession planning, I think this is a significant risk for TCSD in terms of kind of we're in the game for many, many years. And so, you know, that discussion is just, have you had discussions about that long-term model for supporting TCSD in our efforts to maintain library services? You know, you have been doing a wonderful job at pulling together some folks now, but what happens when, you know, that model changes? Have you had discussions about that?
Briefly, Yes, we're talking about the what ifs. What if we can't sustain it? What if we don't get funding? All of those. There are many things on the table, but the financial plan that we're putting together would be using the tax dollars, the property tax dollars. And the plan would then be a 15 to 20-year operational plan. You can't go to LAFCO without doing a longevity of 20 years usually.
And indeed, you might compare it a bit to the recreation department and how that has grown, what, the staffing changes, does it retract, I mean, all our entities are dynamic, organic things and, up and down, but we are a true community hub and we have a lot of participation by the community. I can't help but think that people are gonna step up when people step away,
Thank you.
You,
Anybody else would like to make a comment? Public regarding this issue? That's
I
all.
just have a question.
Is there anybody online? Sorry, I can't see too well. There we go. Anybody online that would like to make a comment on this issue regarding library? Do you see anything?
I have a question, but do I have to go up there?
Yes.
I just have a simple.
Yes. Because we gotta make sure we have you on video. Tanya.
My name is Tanya Gazera and I just come to the meetings because I just want to know what's happening in my community. But my question is, where is I'm understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is a certain amount of tax money allocated to libraries? And Atascadero is getting ours? Am I right or wrong?
All 14 branches are getting it. It all goes to the county and they distributed it to the 14 branches.
That was it.
Understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from public comments? No, okay. I'll bring it back to board. Oh, did you? Okay, I'll bring it back
I don't have any
to
questions.
questions, comments.
One question I did have, and I don't know who this would be directed to. Does the county consider the fact that the Templeton Library, the library in Atascadero is sufficient? And that no additional funding is necessary for Templeton, and that folks, if it's shut down today, that our service would be at the library in Atascadero.
To my knowledge, that has never been verified. The county has tried to run Sprinter vans to different locations. That's their new program. But Atascadero didn't want it to run to Templeton Library, but the county paid you money to be able to set up a stall at concerts in the park on 2 different occasions, trying to generate some library participation or library cards. So we don't know what their proximity or what their parameters were. We don't know why, I wasn't around then, why it was considered Templeton was not going to be reopened. I'm sure it was a monetary decision, but.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have another question.
Is that for Melinda?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Melinda, if you don't mind. go
Yeah.
forward, please, because just
We
wanna make
get
sure
your
we get
chair
on
if
the
you want.
recording.
Yeah.
So in looking at the chronology, it looks like in 2016, there was some survey that was taken, it looks like from the county. And the results indicated that 778 respondents strongly supported the county or the library. Out of how many total respondents, do you know?
I don't know. I have that on a PDF and I have tried to distill that information out of it. It's in an old file and I either don't have the access to it or something, I don't know. But I can see each individual vote and can't pull up tallies and whatever. I haven't explored that. The county did not, was not really interested in the results of that. And I think Wayne, you knew something about it, handled that, when you were president, you handled that, survey.
But I don't remember how many, I can't answer that question. But yeah, it was a significant amount of, Nick, you can answer it?
the county didn't fund that survey.
Yeah,
We developed the survey,
Right.
the UCLA board developed the survey, county funded it, the mailing. And the sample maybe to all the residences in the service district for sure, and maybe the school district.
But you don't know what the number of respondents were. Okay.
as I
Oh,
understand it, there was a high percentage, more so than normal surveys and whatnot, but I don't
No, we don't
remember
have
what
to
it
do.
is.
You know, has there been any subsequent survey done?
We have the one that we're putting out now that we are mailed to all of our members for our November annual meeting that we are having. And so we are polling all of our members and also polling our patrons as they come into the library, and it's on our website. So a survey,
Has that gone out?
it's being mailed as of today.
Okay, I was just saying, yeah.
My last question is, when was the last time you've spoken to, or any one of the board members, to John Pashon about having the property tax library funds allocated to
In June,
of this year?
yes, that's when he asked for a complete proposal of what we needed, and the funds that we needed, and I put together a proposal. If their budget was starting July first, correct? That's their fiscal year, and he asked for a proposal which I put together for him at that time. And he received it, and his answer was, I don't have any votes and I can't, there's no possibility of getting any.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so let's bring it back. If there are no more comments, oh, there's one more. Please, please don't mind going to the podium. Appreciate it.
Connie Madera Vos. I was the legal advisor to the board at one point. I wasn't planning to speak, so please excuse me.
No.
Okay, so I don't want you to walk away with the impression that this board did not have any long-term planning. They were very good about having plan A, B, C, and D, because that's how I advised them. So part of their long-term financial sustainability plan includes financial reserves to operate, as Melinda said, for a number of years, because they have the plan ahead for all of these contingencies that did not come to happen. The other planning that they have in place, is we had a treasurer who managed some long-term investments to maintain capital, and I believe that's still the case. So that was part of their long-term planning. As far as the succession planning, I also did have conversations with them about breaking any attorney-client privilege about succession planning of the board, and also their internal operations. So what they have now is a volunteer coordinator who is charged with the responsibility of recruiting, training, and maintaining volunteers. And the board also collectively is charged with the recruiting, vetting, and having board members to maintain succession level on operations, and also the body that is organizing and running this entity. I just wanted to clear that up so you don't walk away with the impression that there has not been any succession planning going on over the years.
Thank you. Thank you, appreciate it. Any other comments?
I guess I can make one more comment. We covered a lot, but I'll go.
Yeah, please, please.
All right, my name's Jennifer Kuhn. I'm a Templeton resident, and I've also been the librarian at TES for the last 12 years. Melinda covered most of the things I wanted to talk about, the programs that we collaborate with schools and the library. But one thing I noticed over the last 2 years, which is just amazing, I would ask the kids at the end of the school year, what their plans are to continue reading, what summer reading programs they're gonna attend, if they've been to the public libraries, the Atascadero, Paso Robles, etc. And maybe 3 to 5 kids per class, I have 20 classes a week, would raise their hand and say that they've gone to a public library, a story time, a summer reading program. Over the last 2 years, more than half of the kids in every class say that they've been to Templeton Library, they're doing the summer reading program. So it's just amazing the amount, just having that close proximity of our library, how much more the kids and their families are bringing them to experience these wonderful programs at our library. It's a positive thing.
It's a great,
Very excited about it. Thank you.
thank you, it's a great service for our community.
One more comment.
Yes, please.
My name is Nancy Witt, and I'm the second vice president and volunteer coordinator. So, thinking about sustaining the library, I get all the volunteer requests, and we have so many people who want to volunteer, it's amazing. We have 26 active volunteers, which means they're on the schedule. I mean, we aren't open a ton of hours, 22, but we have sometimes 3-4 volunteers there at a time. So we cannot keep them busy, and that's probably our biggest job, is trying to keep our volunteers busy. But we have no lack of people wanting to support the library, wanting to work at the library. Sometimes we have to send them home if there's just nothing to do. So, I mean, and that's what drives us. That's what we train them. And the fact that we were able to train them to catalog, train ourselves to catalog, all the things that the county library pays somebody to do. I mean, we're retired nurses, teachers, engineers, whatever we bring to the table. But the fact that we're able to turn that into a library, I mean, take all our books from the book room that people just donated us their old dusty books and turn it into a library. I mean, I'm no librarian, but I'm impressed with ourselves. So, just to kind of address the sustainability issue.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I don't see any. All right, I'll bring it back to the board for discussion and maybe action. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I will say something. I look out at you guys out there and I can't thank you enough for what you've done in the last 2 or 3 years. But I look out there and I don't see anybody there that was there when I joined the board. So that makes me really feel older than I am. I was, for our board members here that don't know, I was a member of that organization, past president for longer than I've been on this board, and it's like 10 years now. So anyway, I can't disagree with anything that they have said. I probably met when I was at the board and every supervisor that the county has had for this district, and always got the same answer, oh yeah. The first was you build it, we'll run it. And then they said, you come up with 50% and we'll move the other 50%. I mean, they've always, and I've sat in meetings with the CAO, the supervisor, and they just said, well, we don't have the money, so the hell with you people. But coming back to having the CSD running, I'd be more than willing to go with this first recommend or suggestion here about working with you to try to get secure funding. But I am also concerned, as I think Jeff related to, we have a big financial crisis here as it is. It's not that, and to take on something like this is really going to be dangerous for us. And who knows what's going to happen in 10 years. We've seen on our board, we've done a lot of studying or whatever to get money for the fire department, but 10 years later said, oh yeah, well, we forgot this, we forgot that. So it's very, we've got a duty to the community to run the fire and emergency, our water, sewer, that has to come first. But again, I would be more than willing to work with you to see if you can get funding. Melinda I always told Melinda in the past that I'm always the negative person. But I can't see the county getting it off that money, so.
Yeah, so the first,
I
it says LAFCO to active, and then so we go.
Well,
LAFCO to
I would
activate.
I would go with the half. I mean, if we can get the funding, then I would like to take another look. I mean, I think everybody on the board has questions about looking at the budget. I mean, it was very well done. I have a question that who's really gonna be in control? I mean, you're gonna have control of this, and we're gonna pay the bills. And so you send us a bill for a book that costs $50,000, are we supposed to, I mean, I have all those kind of questions. But I think the first step here would be, see if we can get the money. you know, and I would go along with that. So,
I'm opposed to that, and I wanna say first and foremost, I think there's a lot of value and benefit to having the library, so, but my concern is that, you know, hearing that you went through with the county and all those negotiations, we went through the same thing here with the fire department. When we wanted to take the fire department from being a volunteer fire department to 24/7. And we went to the county multiple times to try and negotiate more of those tax revenues, property tax revenue to TCSD. And we banged our head against the wall for about, what, 2 or 3 years. And we finally said, the only way we're gonna be able to do this is by going to the public. And that's where we had the Measure A. So you'll see on your property tax bill, Measure A. And that was the only way that we could fund the fire department. And for what funds are departments that are strictly dependent on property tax revenue, it's the fire, the drainage, streetlights, and park and rec. And even with park and rec, we rely upon a lot of volunteer dollars. My concern with this is that the devil is in the details, and I still don't have a clear vision of how operationally this is gonna be structured and how that is going to be done. And I think that has to be drilled down before we proceed and come to some agreement. So I don't think we're necessarily ready to go to LAFCO, because I'm looking at the budget that was prepared. One of the things we have, our admin services gets charged back. The admin department gets charged back to all the departments within the TCSD. That's not included here. So there's some costs that are missing here that I think need to be fleshed out. So I think that would be the first step, is looking at this to say, can that relationship exist? And what would it look like? So that would be my recommendation before we proceed on any of these.
as usual, I disagree with you.
I know you do.
I would,
Let me just go the English and come back to you.
yes, sir.
Certainly, there's a ton of stuff to unpack in this, and the questions that our board has are the same questions that I have of you. I am not ready to move forward with LAFCO tonight, certainly not. But I do see that there are opportunities where it's very frustrating for me that we have been pulled under the wool several times by the county, been offered things, and this is, it's for our community. That money that's coming out of our property taxes from Templeton, going to our schools, our children, it's taking out to the county, and they're not providing a service back. I do not consider it sufficient to have a library in Atascadero. This is just not enough. That's just not our option, just to have that. So if there's a way in which we can look at this further, I have a lot of questions, and I'm not ready to go tonight either, but I'm not also ready to kill this. I think that I have a lot of questions. Question is, what do we do about it? So, and we have a general manager who has a lot of work to do. We have some very significant issues on our agenda down the road, and I'm gonna be off this board in a couple months. So, you know, we have a fire department we're dealing with. We have some very significant sewer costs potentially that'll dwarf any of the things that we're dealing with in Templeton Community Services. Some mandates from the state that it's gonna be millions of dollars for our wastewater treatment plant. How do we deal with those things? So I just wanna go tread very softly and make sure that we don't obligate our staff of something that's gonna require time, effort, and finances that we don't have. But in the long run. That being said, I can't see us just, not pursuing this further and getting some questions answered by the staff, and maybe there's a way we could bring some of the folks back to the table, answer some of our questions. I still have a lot of questions, particularly with regarding financing and what the what the administrative services costs would be and things of that nature. There's just a lot of things we just don't know. And I'm hesitant to move forward. So, but I don't want to unload staff with a bunch of work about negotiating with you on some of those terms. So, I'd be willing to sit down with a couple folks and answer some questions and maybe bring back some options at a further date when we have some more questions and answers. So I don't know, that's kind of maybe
I get what you're saying. It's how much do we go down the road?
yeah.
But I think it's important that, that on both parties, there's an understanding of what this would look like organizationally. And I think that's important for us to decide prior to going to LABCO, because when we go, if we do go to LABCO, we've got to go as a unified front.
Just want to clarify something. You mentioned LAFCO. I think
Yeah.
we're confusing LAFCO and the county. LAFCO is really the end result. I mean, we're not gonna get anywhere with LAFCO tomorrow. We have to have an arrangement worked out with the county where the dollars are known, and then a plan for operation that's can be sustained within those dollars. That is really the LAFCO application. While LAFCO has the authority to grant the district the ability to activate that power, they do not have the authority to require the county to give up the dollars to fund it. So I view LAFCO, if you were to pursue this path, as really kind of quite late in the process, although that's obviously you have to achieve their approval. The tough negotiations is with the county.
So
I mean,
But
I basically don't disagree with anything you said, but I think that we should move. I don't want to go to LAFCO. I wouldn't go to LAFCO today because we don't know anything. And I think that we should try to get the money from the county as we're working out the rest of this, because that's the key.
Yes.
If we can't get this money from the county, then I personally don't see any way we can get involved.
yes.
If the miracle can happen and Melinda does miracle things, we get this money from the county, we can work out the details. Because I have a lot of questions too about the details. And wouldn't be ready to, if they said they had the money today, I wouldn't be ready to go to LAFCO today. So.
So I still think we need to figure out what this looks like. I understand what you're saying, Jeff. You're saying that this first step would be going to the county and trying to secure those funds, but I think we still need to say, have an agreement between the two parties to say, organizationally, what is that gonna look like? To where there's an
That's like I
agreement
said,
there,
but-
because TCSD may be opposed to what,
Well,
The
I mean,
library's
but
money.
does it make sense to spend on that much staff time? And it's gonna take a lot of staff time. As Director English mentioned, we have a lot of other
I
work that the
understand that.
staff has to do. So if we don't know we have the money or how much it is, I mean, I know Melinda mentioned 400,000, but I see numbers like 230 or 240, whatever. But if we don't have the money, and does it make sense to pursue this at this point? I mean, I think, Templeton TCLA needs to come up with an agreement with the county and say, hey, we're gonna have this much money, how much, whatever amount is, and then present it to us, and then we can sit down and say, hey, okay, this works for us, or this doesn't work for us, so we need this much. But, I mean, who knows of the 400 or whatever amount is, how much county is willing to give up? What if they're only willing to give up $50,000? So I just feel like, and it's unfortunate that the county is not responding to TCLA and, be certain, and so that way they could be certain about how much money they have. So I'm really concerned about spending too much time of our staff away from the crucial items that they need. I mean, our services, are for parks, fire department, as you mentioned, sewer, water. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and this is a noble cause. It's very important to our community, but we can't step into this because we just don't have, we weren't involved from beginning, and it just all, to ask us to get involved at this point, I think it's a little bit premature.
So is your recommendation that PCLA work with this county to get their commitment?
Yes.
That if we were to take it on, if TCSD were to take this on, can the
Because that's
TCLA get the commitment from the county to relinquish those funds?
Yes, and then once
That's
they
your
do, then
recommendation.
we could sit down
That's
and look
what I
at
said,
the,
that's what I was saying.
yeah, look at the operations.
Yes.
Look at the
I can
operations.
support your recommendation.
So that would involve some kind of participation with TCLA, county and staff. So.
No.
I don't know, I don't know what our
Are we
staff.
just
I
we
think,
just
what I'm hearing is that
bystanders?
putting it
For now.
onto TCLA to get some MOU or commitment
Yes.
in writing from the county
Yes.
before we begin any discussion operationally.
Yes, and then, yes, we all have questions.
And
in
with the
terms of
hypothetical
operations.
that if those funds are secured,
Then,
then there's,
Yeah.
there's potential consideration to that.
and I just don't wanna give,
TCSD
yeah.
would take that on.
I don't wanna give false hope
Yeah.
to anybody.
And I can support that.
Alright. So, do we need a direction or?
So just let me reiterate what I think I've heard.
Oh, let me see.
Question before we make a decision.
Let me just see if, Dr. Morrison, did you have something?
No, I'd say from my opinion at this time, I've gathered a successful amount of questions that I would like to direct, at least, not taking up too much staff time, but at least and have some of these answers before I'd even make
Yeah.
a suggestion to move forward. There's just too much in the air at this time to make it any type of decision whatsoever.
Yeah, okay, so do you agree with what we planned that we?
I do agree that it would be of highly beneficial to us if there was a funding dedicated, of course. I don't see that coming in anytime soon, but I do see as we do have possibilities of have questions and answers to at least benefit us as we can see move forward.
Okay, thank you.
So I think what I've kind of heard, at least some of you comment is you, if I understand this correctly, is you're asking TCLA before you would consider this further, that there be a funding commitment from the county that if TCSD were to agree to ultimately work out the details and petition LAFCO, there'd be some sort of sustainable funding from the county, and that we could develop a budget based around that funding source that wouldn't put our other services at risk.
Yeah.
But it's on let me make sure I get this right, it's on TCLA to get that from the county, or are you saying, TCSD staff, you can lend some assistance to TCLA in trying to obtain that? I just wanna make sure they're asking the right questions, because, I don't want.
I mean, what kind of assistance can you really offer? I mean, we've been through this.
No, I don't know that I can deliver anything, I cannot deliver more than these,
Yeah.
they're
Just.
totally committed and passionate, on the topic, but we've got, I guess even tonight, a lot of empty promises that have been heard from the county, and that's not enough. I mean, there needs to be some sort of, commitment, understanding that what is likely to occur should this move forward in terms of the county's prepared to give up a portion of the property taxes that are collected in Templeton so they can be returned to the local community and managed locally.
Okay, so that seems like, so so we'll put it back on TCLA to get some sort of a MOU from the county. And once the agreement is in place, then come back to TCSD, and then we could discuss the steps that we need to take and how we wanna move forward. In terms of operations and things like that.
I'm assuming that there will be some interaction between you and
I think there needs to be
TCLA.
some,
And maybe even a sitting in on a
county-
meeting or two.
The county is going to ask, well, what's TCSD have to say about this? We can't just sit here and say, you guys go away and get the money and we'll do it. I mean, there's gotta be some interaction between the staffs.
Well, I mean,
I think the concern is though, we've got a lot on our plate right now. And the staff needs to address those things that are within the scope of responsibility of TCSD currently. So I think it's saying it's minimal, if anything, if any, staff involvement. And I would think it would just be limited to you, Jeff, if there needs to be any outreach. That's how I envision it. I don't know if anybody thinks.
so maybe just to help frame this, cause I wanna make sure that whatever we do meets your expectation, maybe, and I guess I don't wanna, this is just a suggestion, but maybe what you're saying is, hey, look, we need TCSD board needs to know the level of sustainable financial commitment, new money that would be available to operate the library before we could spend any real time working out the details. And so in order to get that, that's mostly on TCLA, but TCSD staff spend no more than 40 hours in the next 6 months working with TCLA to help facilitate some sort of commitment, lobbying effort, or whatever it ends up being. I guess I just throw that out there because what I don't wanna do is shift a lot of resources here if you're not committed to that, and then fail to deliver at the end of the day. This, as far as I'm concerned, this is very dependent on the county.
Yeah.
The ability to get new money in to TCSD to run this operation, so significant, not thousands of dollars, but tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars annually to run this operation. And unless we're able to get that kind of commitment, this is gonna be very difficult for us to do without sacrificing or harming our existing services.
I think you can pull together an agenda, a recommendation on that. Based on what Jeff says,
well, I mean, I think at this point, we just need to give direction. We don't need a motion.
No, it's an action item.
Yeah, I mean, this can be, in the form of a motion, but I would, if it's gonna be direction, I wanna make sure we've got concrete direction from the majority of the board. Again, I don't wanna, I think the TCLA is gonna rely on whatever they think the decision was. And I wanna, maybe for clarity, it's important to have that made very clear, and I wanna rely on that too. I think there needs to be at least some input from myself as they work with the county staff and board of supervisors, so that at least I'm hearing the words that make sense to me in terms of the kinds of commitment. It's a shift of property tax dollar shift in that allocation.
Mhm.
It's what we sought for fire and never got, right? So I mean, I think I know what it doesn't look like.
Something in terms of your time, I mean, how much time? do you
I know, I
think
just was saying, what do
for
you,
these- Well,
I just threw that
I
out
would
there.
say it would be up to your discretion, but I think your priorities are the district and what the district's responsibility. I think what we're saying is that, so I'll put it in the way of a motion, is that the board is recommending that TCLA take the lead in opening up negotiations with the county to secure that portion of the property taxes, which are for library services within the TCSD, and that our general manager will be available on an as-needed basis, but it will not be his primary responsibility. It is again TCLA's responsibility to move forward with this to secure those dollars of that tax revenue so that further consideration can be given as to whether or not TCLA falls under TCSD.
you get that, Carrie.
Put it all down.
Wait, it was just one too many acronym for me.
I'll listen to it back.
do I have a second on that?
Yeah, I'll second that, although I think the county may just come, let's say, pound sand. Let's,
Okay, we'll have a second. Okay, roll call, please.
Directors Logan,
I,
English,
yes.
Mortensen,
All right,
Peterson,
Yes.
Bardonish.
Aye. Okay, motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank
Really,
you.
we really appreciate all you do for the library and
We know you do,
You know,
and
yeah.
we appreciate that, and we know this is tough and it's a long slog, and I'm not deterred. I don't-
I'm sure.
thank you.
Oh, yeah, all right. Okay, so we'll take a 5-minute
Well, I
break as
expect,
well.
Melinda, the next meeting you'll come back and say you got it.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. We're back from our break. So the next item is introduction of ordinance number 2024-1, which is amending the water code for the water units. So, General Manager, please.
Yes, good evening once again. Okay, I think this item has a little more certainty to it, in terms of our recommendation. So as the board is well aware, the district has, for a long time had less water, less ability to connect new users to the water system than there was demand. And so back 35 some years ago, a water wait list had begun, and property owners got on the wait list for water units, and periodically water units were released to the wait list. This happened infrequently for decades. And then in 2021, and then for each year since 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, some number of water units have been released to the water wait list. In 2021, 22, and 23, that was, about 30 units. Some years went 24, and some when it was 33, some fairly small numbers. And we were dealing with a limited number of property owners at the top of the wait list who we had some regular communication with. And so the release process wasn't overly complicated. Released water units until they were all taken, and the releases, ended within a couple of months, and, was evaluated again the following year. In 2024, 129 water units were released to the wait list. And at the same time, we had 4 relinquished water units that were relinquished units are units that were previously assigned, and those properties gave up, were also released to the wait list. So we started with 133 as of February. In late March, we began the release process. The release process under the current code section, which the current provisions are attached to the staff report, essentially say that the district will notify the property owner, and they shall have 10 days from the date of notification to indicate whether or not they want to accept the water units, and 30 days from the date of the notification to enter into a payment plan agreement and make the initial payment on the water units. It's a fairly condensed process. During this year we dealt with more than 60 property owners so far this year. And we ran into a few problems that some of you are aware of. But we had some issues related to the timing of the mail, or the timing of the property owner's opening of the mail or acceptance of the mail. We presently mail the notifications via certified mail. Knowing how tight the acceptance window is, the code section, we attempt to do what I'll call a informal pre-notification. We wrote letters and mailed them out 30 days or more of, several weeks or longer before the formal notification went out. It's impossible to know exactly when the notification will go out because it's reliant on other property owners either denying or not accepting water units. And to give a little kind of a heads up to those parcel owners. So this year we had some difficulties that were mail related. That led to some disputes with a couple of property owners about some of the technicalities of the code and whether or not they had enough time to make decisions. In response to those difficulties, the district paused essentially the release of water units until such time as the board can consider making some pretty minor amendments to the code that might clear up some of these ambiguities. And before you tonight is an ordinance that would amend the code, and well, the ordinance is several pages long, and we can go through it as much detail as we like. It does this. It increases the initial deadline to accept water units from 10 days, current code language, to 30 days. It specifies the district will use a courier service. This isn't like a bike courier. This is like a formal courier, like FedEx or DHL or a courier service like that, for the delivery of the notification of water availability. That means they'll need to go to physical addresses, not PO boxes. The PO boxes were part of our dilemma in the past. It extends the date to make the payment and enter the payment plan from 30 days to 45 days. So it makes this process a little longer, which I think gives the property owners some more time. It replaces some outdated terms with those that are currently in use and kind of clean up the language. It removes some outdated or unenforced provisions that relate to the forfeiture of units. And it adds an important provision for variances that are sometimes needed to be considered for technical deficiencies or technical reasons. So again, that's what the code would do. The code change would do. I'm happy to dive into the details of the text if it's helpful for you. This ordinance was drafted by legal counsel as a result of some of these challenges that we dealt with, and then internally we reviewed some of those changes and made some recommendations to kind of ensure we were all on the same page. And again, this is something that Carrie is sort of the primary deliverer of the news, and we wanted to make sure all this stuff would work well for us and work through some of these issues. And this does improve or ensure that property owners have adequate due process in making decisions, and I think will reduce future disputes if there are any. The process for adopting an ordinance it takes 2 readings. Tonight would be the introduction or the first reading. That reading is recommended to be waived. It means you don't have to read the whole ordinance into the record. You waive the reading and introduce the ordinance. At your if that is done tonight, then at the next meeting, the ordinance could be placed on the agenda for adoption. If adopted, it would take effect 30 days later. So the code would actually change likely in early December. Again, there are some other details I'd like to go over with the water code, water wait lists and things like that before you move on from this item. But that's my presentation with regards to the ordinance itself. I think we have not had any input from the public about this, but in general, my sense is that those folks that are getting these notifications would more clearly understand the deadlines and more be able to meet the deadlines. Some of the problems that we had in the past really dealt with the slowness of the mail and some challenges with post office boxes and certified mail in particular, and then certified mail to persons who are not at home to sign for such certified mail. It's important to note that these delivery services would not require a signature, and would just be dropped on the doorstep or the physical address of the recipient, just like any other FedEx delivery or FedEx style delivery. And that's what's been recommended from our legal counsel. Okay. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. So there's.
Oh, okay, I was gonna have it. Go ahead. That's okay.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
So there's no requirement that they actually confirm that they received it.
Right, well, there's no requirement that they signed for it in the code section, and that was some of the hiccups that we had, quite honestly, was getting that notice delivered in a timely manner if they were unavailable if somebody was unavailable to sign for it, or it went to something like a post office box that was not checked frequently, and then the post office wouldn't place a certified mail in the post office box. The person would have to go to the counter to sign for it. That led to some delays, really where in the current code section, a piece of mail sometimes wasn't delivered or received, I guess I'll use that term, received by the property owner until the deadline had already passed.
So, my question is, do we have physical addresses for everyone on the wait list?
We do not.
We do not.
We do not. So let me, yeah, we can, yeah, we've kind of talked about how we're gonna get through this. So a couple things. One, right now, we rely on the county assessor records to determine addresses of property owners. And it's not uncommon for property owners to utilize a post office box as their address of record. In this case, we will write, email, call. We have contact information for most of the people on the wait list and request physical mailing addresses from those who we do not already have it. And then in the future, we'll amend our wait list application to include or require a physical address for the wait list application.
So my other question is if the board approves these changes this evening, will there be a communication out to all those folks on the wait list to say what the new protocol is?
So I think we have a number of options, about how you want to move forward if this is approved. Now, tonight, you're actually not approving any, you're introducing an ordinance.
Okay.
It would be adopted at the next, it could be considered for adoption at the next meeting. So it's not, approved tonight. But you have a few options. One, and maybe it's, if you want to, I would prefer to handle all the questions about what's contained in the ordinance. And then if there's concurrence about how we want to, about that you're comfortable with the language, then we can talk about how we deal with the wait list and the pending changes. Because that one might change if there are some requests to change the language in the ordinance. I guess the other thing I want to point out is, technically speaking, tonight is your real night to make changes to the ordinance. If, even though it requires 2 readings, if you introduce it tonight and you want to make some changes to it next time, you may have to reintroduce the ordinance, which would extend the time it takes to get it in place.
Any other questions on this? I have a question. I just want to make sure. Okay, so you mentioned that you don't have all the physical addresses. Is it possible? I mean, I know it's going to take a lot of effort to do that, and I'm sure Carrie's fully capable of doing that. So, but I mean, is it possible to still continue and not only sending it to physical addresses, but also send the notice to the PO box? Does it hurt? I mean, does it hurt anything?
So,
Just in case if we don't get the right address or we're having a hard time.
our intent was to continue to actually also electronically, the code doesn't specify it now, but in addition to mailing, we also provide the notification electronically for all the email addresses that we have. And we have electronic communication, we have email addresses for most of the persons who are on the wait list. Yeah, we could do that. We could do it via mail. We could do it in additional ways, but the code would specify that the formal way is this way.
Okay.
So if this is introduced and then later approved, we would be obligated to obtain a physical address and utilize this method. You could use other methods as well, but this would be the method that would be necessary to follow in order to follow the code, in order to comply with the code. We could do additional methods voluntarily.
So what if you don't get the physical address?
We have to get the physical address.
Well, I mean, is that?
Well, I think that would be the purpose of communicating the change in the ordinance to say that we need a physical address.
Most people we have addresses for, let's say maybe 1 in 10.
Yeah,
have
there's not a
yourself.
bunch
There's
of
not-
PO boxes, it's mostly.
mostly
physical
physical
addresses
address.
are-
I mean,
That would be the carrot to get them to give us a physical address.
Yeah, most people are communicative. Well, you know, we ask for information, they mostly provide it. The ones that are higher on the wait list, we've had communication with already, because we've already pre-notified another 38 parcel owners a couple months ago.
And we ask all of them to provide us with email addresses.
Oh, yeah.
That's how we've been getting some, is because they've gotten that pre-notice and then they'll provide us an email address. That way, if they do get an offer, we can send it out to them electronically and in the mail. That way they can get it right away, plus in the mail. So pre-notice helps with.
I'm just concerned if we don't somehow, and some people are like that, they don't wanna offer their, physical address, and if that's gonna.
I mean, I think that, we'll have to notify them that this is the only way, the means of communication is through, is specified in the code. They have to provide us their contact information if they wish to be formally notified. So, but
Well, no. I mean, I just don't know, it's like, is it better just to keep it like that and then, but there will be understanding that you guys gonna attempt to get everyone's
I think-
physical address and then send them a notice as well to the physical address? I mean, I just wanna make sure that everyone gets a notification. So if, is this too restricted?
I
to
think the
find
PO
the
box
physical?
caused problems.
Yes,
And so I think if there's gotta, if we move forward with this, I think we have to communicate to the folks on the wait list
yeah, of course.
that this is the new ordinance. And in order for us to communicate with you, we need a physical address. And failure to provide that physical address will result in you not perhaps getting your water units.
But that's not in our code. So
well,
we'll have to put that
it would
in our
be,
code.
if this were.
It is. So my question is, this is retroactive, or are we just moving forward the 30 days afterwards? So all individuals on the wait list now, if they have a PO box, they're within whatever previous ordinance it was.
No, I mean, when you say retroactive, it's moving forward, but it can apply to the wait list presently.
Okay.
So this isn't only applied to people who are not yet on the wait list. It would apply to those on the wait list who have not yet been offered a water unit as well, if the code's in effect at that time.
And then my other question is, how many units do we have left?
So I can, yeah, I
Oh,
can,
you wanna
yeah,
go
I
to-
wanna deal with that
that's-
separate.
okay, that's separate. Okay, okay,
uh,
that's separate, never mind, yeah, I brought it outside, okay, that's fine, I don't have any more questions.
I don't have any more.
So is there, I mean, you don't have to vote on this right now, but is the code language then that's drafted work for you? You think it resolves the challenges that we've kind of faced?
Well, I mean, to me is the staff that's dealing with it, so you guys are best.
Yeah, I think it's far
understand.
improved. I
you
think
know.
there will still be challenge, it's
You know.
never gonna be enough
Yeah.
time for somebody who hasn't been thinking about this for 20 years. 30 days, they'll want 60, they'll want 90, they'll want 120. I mean, it's better than what the code provisions are now in terms of adequacy of timing.
Okay,
And when someone requests water units, do they get a copy of this ordinance? At the time they complete the application?
No. And the ordinances can always change. I mean,
Yeah, true. But I'm just wondering, I mean.
I mean, the
and-
people who
and
are dealing with
we
on the wait
have
list
that
now bought it
disclaimer.
on the wait list 20 years ago, so the
Yeah.
code has changed multitude of times.
And you could put a disclaimer on it, but I'm just thinking just in full disclosure for somebody who's asking is they understand the means of communication
well, I mean, you're saying going forward, right?
going forward.
So
But even
I-
the
I-
folks that are
general-
on the wait list,
Oh, on the-
I think we need
but
to communicate
If
with
from
them.
now on though, if they sign up for the wait list, they have to give their physical address.
That's
Yeah.
gonna be a lot of work for our staff to send,
79.
79, I don't know if that's a ton, but, they're going to be, communicated with some kind of information that's going to say you have 90 days. And,
Well, that's true.
and the rules are as follows, you can look online. I don't know
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
really need to do that, so.
So our practice
would
has
they
been
prefer?
to do it informal advance notification followed by the formal communication. And we absolutely will update the advance notification to reference the new, if it's approved, the new code provisions so they can anticipate this. And then in those cases where we don't have a physical address, we're gonna work our tail off to find it. And we'll, if there's a problem with one or two, we'll figure it out. And if we need to come back, we can. But the code is gonna say that we have to deliver this we're gonna use a courier service and deliver to a physical address. So that's what we're gonna do.
And it's 45 days, Director English. You said 90 days, but it's 45
Well,
days.
I think it was 45 and formal, but the policy says 30 days is.
If this is introduced and then later approved, they'll have 30 days to indicate whether they accept
Yes.
water units. And a total of 45 from the delivery day of the notification to actually pay.
So it's not additional 45 days, it's 45 days is part of it, so from basically the day they get notified.
And so when they come up, you're gonna be notifying them. of
Yeah,
what
yeah,
the
we're
time is.
already,
That's fine with that.
the advanced notification in general is working to obtain interest and most people have made contact some dozens of times in this process. So most people we're have pretty regular communication with. The ones that we ended up having some challenges with they didn't give us email addresses, and then we had mail problems. So I think that this change resolves that. We'll still attempt to communicate electronically. We don't want to spring this on folks. We know that that's a big decision they have to make. And it's a compressed timeline. That's why we want to get the advanced notification out there so they can begin that thought process before they receive the formal communication in anticipation of receiving it. Although then again, we can't promise that they actually do.
Also, we have to keep in mind, this is not 45 business days, it's, includes
Calendar
weekends,
days.
so it actually even shrinks it more. Because, they may, they obviously they can't get the mail on Sunday, so.
So do we need to specify calendar days?
It's presented as recommended by our legal counsel. That was one of the matters of dispute with some of the parties, was whether or not it was calendar days or business days. But it's been drafted,
I think it just says days.
yes, it says within 30 calendar days after the date.
Let me see.
It's on section A.
Oh, you're right, it does say calendar days. I was looking above. I'm good with that.
Okay, so then let me, there's a few other, so assuming you're interested in moving forward with the ordinance, I do want to review a couple of items that are very related. You can pull up the website. So I want to just, as Carrie's pulling up the current wait list, I wanted to just take you back to where we were earlier this year. When we began issuing water units, there were 143 parcels requesting a total of 1,603 units, and it dated back to 1994. So again, if you were to have looked at this list in March, 1994 would be the first date, and there would have been 143 parcels and 1,603 requests. So today, so now since March, and thus far, we've assigned 61 of the available units. 61 units of the 133 have been assigned. 72 remain. So a little more than half still remain.
Wow.
Today,
That's incredible.
if you look at the list, there are 79 parcels. So we have 64 fewer parcels than we started with, requesting a total of 1,151 units. Now, keep in mind, these requests that are shown here, these 10, 11, 161, 162 units at the bottom have been added since we started the releases. So really, if you ignore those latest requests that already have been added on since the units were released, we're down to about we would have eliminated about 600 or so units, and we've assigned about 60. So this isn't statistically valid, but it's more reflective than we've looked at the past. We're burning through about 10 units on the wait list for every one that we assign.
So for those that are in the room, can you kind of give a little history of this wait list? Because I think what you're saying for me, knowing it, I'm just amazed at what has been accomplished with TCSD being able to release water units. So can you kind of, for those on the phone and people here, so they can appreciate what is really being said?
Yeah, I mean, let me try to frame it again. So we've had a wait list that dates back, 35 plus years. And as early as this year, early 2024, we had property owners who were on the wait list from 1994. So 30 years ago, we had property owners that had been on the wait, had been waiting for water for 30 years. Now, that's not to say that they hadn't been offered water before, but they hadn't received enough of an offer to remove them from the wait list. The way the policy works is if the district can assign as many units as you have on the wait list and you ought not to take them, then you're removed from the wait list. And so if you were asking for 50 units and we could only offer you 49, you could essentially pass up on the 49 and remain on the wait list. So we had property owners that were dating back to 1994, and we totaled 1,603 water units. Now, most of us believe that the wait list was not, I don't want to say the wait list was bogus, because that's the wrong.
It was artificial.
It was inflated, it was not reflective of a true demand.
Right.
People used a lot of round numbers when they applied to the wait list. There wasn't a reason to be conservative or cautious when you applied. So it was, but there was no way of telling. I mean, I didn't have an accurate way of telling how much of the wait list was inflated. Now I can tell you that at least this year, it's been about 10 to 1. For every 1 unit we've assigned, about 10 have gone away. So if that pattern holds true, then and again, this is a big if, and it's, you know, if we have 72 units left today, and that's what we have, then we'll burn through about 720 additional water unit requests to fully assign them. Now that could be totally wrong, and I could be mistaken, and we could, you know, get 72 out of the next 50 or 100, or maybe it'll take all 1,100. I don't know, but we've had sufficient numbers to really make some good progress to the wait list. So we've eliminated 10 years worth of waiting from 94 to 2000. The oldest property owner, the oldest wait list application dates back to 2004. You can see here. So we've taken off 10 years of the wait list in the first 6 months of 2024. And we still have more than half of the water units remaining. Now, I did want to, you talked about some technicalities. Back in August, before we knew that there was going to be likely a change to the process, we notified the next 36 up to this property owner right here, Shangri-La, that units were still being assigned, and they may receive a water unit offer notification in the coming weeks or months. So we've already notified them. Now, we notified them and advised them of the existing code language. You have a couple of choices moving forward tonight. The most conservative approach is that you would introduce the ordinance tonight. It would go on the next board meeting agenda for adoption. It would take effect 30 days later. And at that point, you would resume issuing formal water notification offers using the new code section. If you've already waited a while, this took longer to get before you than we had anticipated for various reasons. If you feel that, look, folks have been waiting a long time, they're chomping at the bit, we want to resume water unit notifications now and not wait until December, we would recommend that we begin to follow the introduced, if it's introduced, provisions if in fact you wish to proceed over the next, say, 7 or 8 weeks before the code section takes effect. And the reason for that is, if the options are just one of those two, and you're not going to utilize the existing code section because you want to wait for the new provisions to take effect, then property owners that are further down on the wait list are not harmed by your resuming notifications using this more extended provision, because that's what you were intending to use come December anyways. And further, that property owners that are going to receive the notification have a more enhanced due process. In other words, the rules are more relaxed. They have 30 days instead of 10, 45 days instead of 30. So that becomes, we can accept direction to resume notifications using these new terms, new procedures. If this is introduced tonight, then again, the most conservative method, and normally the only method that I would ever recommend is to wait until the ordinance is introduced. But we've analyzed the risks, and we believe that it's pretty minimal if you wanna resume offering right away. Cause I know that this is some of you, wanting to see just how far we're gonna get, and can we knock out another 10 years, et cetera, et cetera. Carrie and I have already kind of spoken about which of the initial waitlist customers we do not have physical addresses for, and how we're gonna go about obtaining those, and I think we've got a plan of attack. I will say that the next, if we do that, if we begin that process more immediately before the code section takes effect, it may lead to a little bit of confusion, because the rules will outline in the formal notification won't match the pre-notification, because we pre-notified them using the old or existing code section. So I hope I haven't muddied this water terribly. But that's kind of where we stand. I think you can deal with this in two separate ways. You can introduce I would recommend that you would introduce the ordinance that you would waive the first reading and introduce the ordinance by motion. And only after that is voted in, then let us know if you want to provide direction on how to proceed with notifications.
Before I do that, let me go to public, please. Any public comments or questions on this matter?
What is a water unit? What are we talking about?
Water unit? What is the water unit?
For in all practical purposes, it's like an equivalent to a dwelling unit. Some people use the term water meter, but it's not a one size fits all necessarily. If it's a house or an apartment, it's a single dwelling unit water meter. In our code, it means it's an assignment of 575 gallon per day limit. We have a lot of industrial customers or commercial customers that require more than one unit to meet their needs.
Yeah. So basically, if someone wants to build, they gotta request water, and for 30 years, we didn't have water to offer. So now, as of 4 years ago, we're starting to offer water units, but there's a wait list, so we're trying to tackle the wait list.
Where did we get the additional water?
So you want to speak to how we do the reserve?
I would recommend that citizens or customers who really want to understand this would look at our water buffer policy. That's something that was reviewed before the board at the second meeting in February of 2024 most recently. And it'll come before the board again next winter.
Yeah, and some of the water that's coming is because people are using less water, as well as we with our project, we no longer sending affluent water to Paso Robles, is coming to us, so all that is helping us gain some more water. Anybody on Zoom wants to make any comment or have any questions? I don't think so, right? Okay, so none. All right, so we'll bring it back to board. So we, general manager covered the new ordinance, and if there are no questions or comments about it, does anybody want to make a motion to move forward on that? I entertain a motion. Or if there's questions.
You have a question?
Actually, I do have one additional question, and it's somewhat not relevant to what that specific topic is, but we keep adding to the list. And I just noticed that there was 120 people went off the list and then went back on the list. And so we've got this treadmill of folks who are just coming off the list and then going right back on the list. So it's I think our goal is to at some point eliminate that whole list. And we've actually have folks on the list who are not able to, who went back on the list, who are not able to develop currently, but they have a list. So I go back to this issue of it's not really reflective of what our water demand is, and how can we fix this problem? We're not really, we're making a lot of progress, obviously, and we're getting this issue done in terms of allowing additional water, but we're still creating this problem that really doesn't exist. I don't know if that makes sense. And so how do we resolve that?
It's ultimately would be to
Well, but
get to a point that we've gone through the water list, so it'd be.
well, the only way we've been able to release water units is when we look at the water buffer. And that's a policy where we've said we're going to reserve at least 25% of our water. So that we know that during droughts, we're still able to provide services to those folks that we've already committed water to. So I think the water units have been kind of increasing in the last, 4 or 5 years that we've been releasing water units. And as that increases, because of some of the other strategic projects that we've done to be able to provide more water and to our residents. So until we are able to sufficiently provide the units for the demand, that's when this list is eliminated. Until then, we have the list. Because the demand is still exceeding what's available based upon our review annually of the buffer policy.
I agree, but that's not a realistic list.
No, I
It's
so-
not, but I don't
so how
know
do
that
we-
there's anything better.
Well,
digging into holes.
so let me just explain, so you're correct that, these latest, 5 waitlist applicants were customers offered water units, did not accept them, and one of the options they had was to just get back on the list. At the bottom of the list, sort of announcing their anticipation, they still have dreams, but they just don't wanna deal with it right now.
Or they don't have the money.
There's lots of reasons, hundreds of reasons, and it'd be almost impossible to try to narrow them down. I think what I would suggest is what we've learned this year is that the problem isn't as large as maybe the wait list made it appear to be. I'm not suggesting it's solved at all. And it's quite artificial, the size of the problem, so the scope and the size of the demand has been misrepresented on the list. Now, I mean, even if you were to have released 300 water units and blasted the whole list, that's not to say there still wouldn't be more people who were ready to take water, or so they needed more than we could provide to start up a new list. I would suggest that this wait list issue is an anomaly. This is not how it works in most communities. In most communities, a property owner does not worry about securing their water entitlement until they secure all of their other entitlements at the same time, their rights to build, if you will. You know, all of the process that goes through with the county and payment, and in our case, that would be simply paying a development impact fee for water. We would have sufficient water to serve them at the time, and this wouldn't be so artificially inflated. You know, I don't believe that the 72 units that we have remaining to assign right now are gonna extinguish the list, but the list will undoubtedly be smaller the next time you look at this if we release it.
But I mean, Dr. English makes a great point, because the 150 units that's back on there, well, it used to be 50 from what I recall, right?
That's right,
So why is there 150? They
'cause that's what
request-
the applicant put on.
But it's impossible to use 150 units for that property. It's impossible. And so, I mean,
Well, I
should
don't
we
know that there's
request?
a way though.
I mean, I don't know, maybe to request a
there's
plan
no
for,
harm in
I don't know, I mean, there's no way they could use 150.
I mean, I'm suggesting
This
is
is
that
a-
we eliminate the list.
Yeah.
So once you're done, once this list is done, you come into the, you know, you come in here and if you have your cash ready to go, as soon as we have that, cash, then we allocate the water.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it just goes away. We created a list that really doesn't mean anything.
Well, and right now, they pay only $300 to put their name on the list. It's not per unit, right?
It's a one-time application fee
Yeah.
per parcel.
They're in charge, I don't know, but yeah, I mean.
I'm not asking we
Yeah.
resolve that
Yeah,
tonight,
I-
but
yeah,
it-
no, I
it
get it, I
is-
get it, I
it is
appreciate that
an
though, it
issue.
makes, yeah, it is.
I think until you
hopefully-
have somebody who can come in at the counter
Yeah,
and
that's
get
it.
the water unit and pay at that time.
Yeah.
This is what we're
This
gonna
is
have.
not, but it's,
And we know what
it's
it
still
is.
inflated,
Well,
right?
because we know if that person, who is it, Joseph and Dean, If they want 150 units, if we said tomorrow, oh, you've got 150 units available,
It'd be,
they probably would not want them.
No.
So you're right in that it is a little artificial in nature, but it's basically saying these are people who want it.
yeah,
We can't meet all this demand at this point in time.
we'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, we
We'll work
really have made tremendous inroads
Yeah,
on this.
yeah. All right, any other questions or comments on this?
No.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion on the reading of the ordinance.
So I'll make a
I'm sorry.
motion that the board waive the first reading and introduce ordinance 2024-1, making minor changes to the district water code section 14.08.530.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Go ahead, Eric. Mortensen seconded, a roll call, please.
Directors Logan,
Aye.
Mortensen,
Aye.
English.
Aye.
Peterson
Yes.
and Fardonish.
Aye. Okay, motion passes 5-0. Thank you for doing that. So the next question becomes in terms of when do we want to start the processing? So General Manager mentioned the most conservative way, but there's also another thing we could do, which would be
I
low
think-
risk.
Whatever is the easiest transition, and I think if you need to wait until this ordinance takes effect, that to me seems like it would be the cleanest way of doing it. It's really no harm to those individuals, it just allows a little lapse.
Let me just, and I agree with you, that's the most cautious, and it allows us to communicate with the most clarity, because under that scenario, what we would do is I would wait, this would go back on your next agenda, and if it's adopted, it will take effect, absent some court filing or something like that, it will take effect 30 days later, it'll be published in the newspaper, et cetera. At that point, we would pre-notify the waitlist applicants with the updated rules and tell them that we're gonna start releasing units once the new code section takes effect in early December. The only con there's two cons that I see that I wanna make sure you're aware of. One is on January 1st, the cost of each water unit is gonna go up by about $450. Because that just happens to be what occurred earlier tonight. And so that means that more customers are gonna be offered the water unit at a higher price. Now, that's only it's 1%, it's not nearly the concern that I had when this would have been 4 or 5% or some, years past, this was a much bigger increase. But it is an issue, and I'm sure we'll take a little flack for it. And then the second thing is, some people are interested in seeing just how far we get before we have to look at this issue again in the winter. And even if we started tomorrow, my belief is we wouldn't have 72 units assigned between now and February. And if we start in December, this might run well into next year to finish the assignment. The assignment is gonna be slower under the new process. That's probably okay in the big picture, it doesn't affect very much, but it will be a slower process. So those are the two cons, but I appreciate the point of view, and I think that if we waited until it was in effect, it would permit us to pre-notify, and this will busy word, pre-notify again and advise these folks of the updated provisions before they receive the new notification.
Given what you just said, I would recommend that we just move forward now and not wait. We have folks who are ready. There's very little very little risk to it. And that there will be some who are gonna be caught into an additional cost. So based on that, it would be my recommendation that we just move forward. It's not gonna have a significant impact on additional staff. So I would recommend that we move forward. So.
Dr. Mortis?
I would also as well, but I'd also like to make sure that the individuals are informed of the changes that will be coming up in the future.
So that's why
Yeah, just to try to clarify, the notification that we provide will include these new procedures.
Okay.
So they would know that their deadlines, in the notification.
That's why we will start the process. And I think it would be good to have some more, better idea when it comes for us to review the water buffer policy sometime in February, so at least, you know.
It'd be a little further along.
Yeah, it'd be a little further along, so in terms of releasing it, so I'm okay with moving forward with it too.
So is there concurrence to
Yeah.
I think
just restart?
Yeah,
Okay. We will get on it.
okay. We don't need motion.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so
I mean, you made the formal decision in February to release these units, so they're scheduled.
okay, let me just request any public comment on this, starting the process again. Any public comment? No, okay. The board, so we're done with that section, so we move on to general manager's report.
Okay, just a few items that I noted for you. One, there is a CSDA, that's California Special Districts Association chapter meeting in San Luis Obispo, lunchtime meeting next Thursday, the 24th. If you have any interest in attending, please let Carrie know. I think the deadline to RSVP is Monday, and we will be able to arrange a carpool from Templeton if you would like to ride with us, although I think we've got a couple of board members maybe going and one staff member so far. Just so you're aware, we are an official SLO County ballot drop box location. And we've done so for all the elections since 2019. And so we have more people coming to see us now, their ballots for the next couple of weeks, 3 weeks, I think. We did need to extend the senior maintenance worker recruitment. We were unable to obtain a qualified candidate that would accept the job. So we've extended that. I think our next review is gonna be in about 2 weeks. So we'll kind of keep you posted.
I'm about to. Thank you.
Yeah, it might be a conflict to we went, we'll take any applicants we can get right now. Let's see, and then just, I will be on vacation beginning Thursday this week and then all of next week. And I'll email you some additional information. I'll have more limited email and cell phone communication than I typically do when I'm gone, just because there'll be some periods of time when I'm out of cell coverage or email range or cell or Wi-Fi. But I'll be back the last week of October, so gone about 6 work days.
And our first meeting is in
November 5th, 3 weeks from today. Those are the items that I had.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the general manager? Report, no. Anything from public for general manager? Okay. Committee reports. We have 2. Any questions on the Parks, Rec, and Refuse Committee report or the RAC Committee report?
So I have a question on item number 9, the solid waste diversion rates. It says here that the general manager provided information regarding the most recent diversion rates he received from waste management. Can those be shared with the board?
Yeah, they're posted online with this packet. They were.
I didn't see them in there.
Well, they were. I mean, they were posted with the committee meeting
I didn't
packet.
see them in there.
I can pull it up for you right now.
Box where it says 10% over on the left.
Yeah, I just see the minutes. And I'm looking using the link that's in the
Yeah,
agenda.
let me show you how I find it, and then we'll go from there. So Agenda Center.
Oh, then going to the actual committee.
Yes, the
Yeah.
committee meeting packet. which
Okay,
is right-
okay, I can get that.
Yeah, but let me
Yeah.
just so you can see, then because that was not an item. Solid waste diversion rates, they're right here. That's this is the when this was being referenced, this is what it was referencing, was this waste management report.
So no increase in the rates that are being recommended by Waste Management?
Oh, these are diversion rates, not fees.
Diversion, okay,
Diversion of, this was referring to diversion of solid waste from the landfill.
okay. And we're compliant in that, is what they're saying.
Yeah, what ended up happening at that meeting is Peter Cron from IWMA came and explained how Cal Recycle views those and that the diversion rate goals, when we talk about, right now, we're supposed to be diverting 50% from the landfill, and in a couple of years, that actually gets up to 75%. So only 25% of waste is supposed to go to landfill. Cal Recycle doesn't look at our haulers' diversion rate. They look at these much broader calculations that take into consideration what consumers do before things go to the hauler, like composting or C&D or these other kinds of buyback centers and all these other options that people have. And so they calculate it differently, and he explained that really both Templeton and the county as a whole were, pretty safely within the Cal Recycle guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions on either of those reports? No, okay, moving on to the activity update reports, we have engineering. That was very thorough report.
Yeah, that's an excellent report.
Yes, it's like, all
We'll
right.
pass that along.
Yes,
Yeah.
please, she put quite a bit of time into that, thank you. It's still not good about their, park, plans, but that's okay. Next is, finance, any questions for finance report? No? Public, any questions for finance? No? Fire and emergency services, any questions on that?
So it's not so much a question, but it's more of a comment, and then I just want to give a shout out to the fire department, because it's noted under grants that the fire department was able to secure a $20,000 VFC grant for their PPE.
Yeah.
So I just want to commend the fire department in securing those funds.
Actually, so I had a question on that, thank you, but it's a matching fund. So that means we have to come up with 20,000, was that in the budget? I don't recall.
I don't recall, but we'll review.
Because
We'll amend the budget otherwise.
I don't know how much.
We're not letting that $20,000
No,
go.
but it's getting really close. So, public, any questions on fire and emergency report? No. Okay, Parks and Rec and solid waste report? Any questions on that? In public, any questions? Okay, and utilities? Any questions on that? Okay, it seems like even though we're missing out well, we're still doing okay. in
Yeah,
terms of
we're,
production.
it's,
And then last month it was, but I guess the production versus consumption, it's okay, compared to other years, we need to go back to.
yeah, I think if you look at through September was kind of like as it's been for the last 5 years, what ended up happening in early October, we heated up, so
Yeah.
our water use is, increased. The beginning of the year, we had it, lower than the last 5 years because of the heavy rains, and as the summer went on, we kind of ticked back up to the hours of the last 5 years.
All right, and lastly is director's report or comments. Any meetings that anybody was involved with that they want to share? No? Okay. Oh,
Yeah, the only meeting that I attended to, and Director Peterson was not available, was at the Nacimiento Project Commission meeting. And there was a special meeting as a result of a break in one of the lines. It was at the Yerba Buena. I'm not exactly sure where that Yerba Buena crossing is.
It's down near Garden Farms.
Okay. Anyway, it wasn't a project that diverted our own water or prevented us from having our own water, but it did south of that. It's a significant cost. It's $518,000, but because of the percentage that we had, it was only about I think a $9,000 impact on Templeton community, our utilities. But anyway, that continues to be a challenge. Nasi line has had a few breaks, and there's probably going to be some discussion in the future about making sure that there's better reliability with that line. So anyway, just wanted to update that.
well, thank you, appreciate that, thanks for going. All right, if there are no other items to report, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.